Welcome to this week's episode of the Author Collaborative. As always, I'll be talking to an author whose book I have recently read and enjoyed. And my guest for this week is author Rita Bhattacharjee. And we are going to talk about her book Ageless Feud. And I have been meaning to get her on the show for a while now, but it took me a long time to finish reading the book, hence the little delay in having her as a guest. Hi Nilshri, thank you for joining. Let me see if Rita is here. I'm just going to invite her and quickly start the episode. Oh, she's not here yet. Let's wait for a few moments before she can join us. Yes, Rita is here. Hi Rita, I have just sent you a request. Hopefully Instagram will work without any glitches and we should be able to start the episode quickly. Hi Tina, thank you for joining. Rita, if you're here, can you let me know in the comments if you have received the request to join me in the live? If not, I'll send you a fresh invitation or whatever issue that you are facing, if you can let me know in the comments. Okay, I think the invitation hasn't gone through. I'm going to send you a fresh invitation. Yes, Rita, I've sent you another invitation. See if you received that. Yes.
Hi.
Hi, Rita. Thank you for joining me today. Very excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Same here. Thank you for having me on the show.
Very happy. Actually, I wanted to have you earlier than this, but it took me a while to get through your book, and we had to postpone this at least a couple of times. And I had to tell you every time, I have not yet finished the book. Please give me more time. But very
Okay.
happy that we are finally doing this. Before we start the episode, please introduce yourself to the audience briefly.
Hi everyone. My name is Writa Bhattacharjee. Though I have written this book under the name of Amir Roy, which is my pseudonym. Apart from being an author, I do content writing professionally. I am also involved a lot in animal welfare. I have a couple of pet businesses as well, and of course, I read a lot of books. That's basically who I am. Yeah.
We are just going to show everyone the cover of the book that we are talking about. This is the book, Ageless Feud, and subtitle is City of Kali. And as she has mentioned, Rita has mentioned that this is under a pseudonym, so don't get confused. It is under the name of Amia Roy, that is her pseudonym. And yeah, I had the same problem. I remember asking you, is this the right book? Because I am talking to
Yeah.
So yes, don't get confused. It is written by Rita, but the name on the book cover is different. Yes, and coming back to the book again, I just want to see, first of all, disclaimer for everyone. Just because it took me a while to finish the book doesn't mean that the book is not good. The problem lies with me. I am not used to reading 300 plus pages books anymore. That's why it took me a while. So
Yeah.
even though it took me some time to finish and get through the book, it's really worth the time investment. Maybe if you're a quick reader, you will finish it within 2 days or one day. I don't know.
Some
But
readers have actually done that. They've been like read it like as soon as they got it, they read it through the night and finished it. I do have a few readers who have done that too.
yes. Problem was with me. I was reading it slow. I wanted to enjoy the book. I had other commitments, so I was, going through it slowly.
Yeah.
But that does not take away from how exciting and thrilling this book is, and especially the genre I want to talk about. I haven't read fantasy and supernatural horror in a while, so thank you for rekindling my love for this genre first of all, and
Thank
then you have put it in a context which feels familiar because generally when we read fantasy, we don't associate it with somewhere there, in the Indian subcontinent. We are reading about fantasy which is based out of India or which is based out
you.
of South Asian countries. We don't read about stories that are based in our own culture and something we can relate to. So thank you for
Yeah.
that also. and we are reading about terms and demons that we are familiar with. We have heard tales about them. There is
Mm.
so much folklore around them in the Indian cultural,
Yeah.
Indian
Mm.
literature. We are reading about bhoot, pishach, atma, and all of that. So I was like, ये तो अपने ही लोग हैं.
Yeah, that was kind of the goal, for me to do that. That to bring our own folklore and mythology into a present day context for our current day readers.
Yes, we'll talk about that in more detail.
Yeah.
And just I wanted to highlight that that was one of the reasons that I enjoyed reading the book. And I'm sure those people who enjoy this genre, especially Indian readers, they should definitely give it a try because हमने Indian context में fantasy बहुत कम पढ़ा है. So please give it a try. And secondly, other thing that I wanted to talk about is the characters. I mean, the lead character is so problematic.
Yes, this he is very much so. Yeah.
And yet you find yourself rooting for him. You're like, हाँ ठीक है मतलब टेढ़ा है पर मेरा ऐसा है. That
I love that.
we have the mother and the aunt also who are also like that.
Mm.
कि हाँ they they are literally with that feeling कि हाँ टेढ़ा है
Yeah.
पर मेरा है. We have to
Yeah.
protect him. We have to support him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And the mother and the aunt are so funny. I mean, especially the aunt. She has such sass. I was enjoying her taking उसकी खिल्ली उड़ा रहे थे ना मानिक की. I was like, ऐसे ही होता है.
Yeah.
हाँ और aunts ऐसे ही होते हैं. They love you, but they will not let you live peacefully.
It's such a typical Indian family, middle class, especially
Yes.
family thing, to have this kind of dynamic with like mothers, aunts, and grown-up people. Like, I really wanted to capture that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that comes out really well. And then we have a cat. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but that cat is also such a character. I mean, she's adding the her own quirkiness to the entire story. And that cat becomes such an important character later on in the book. You are like, हाँ, I didn't see that happening. Now I realize कि starting में इसको इतना क्यों दिखाया था. So yeah, the
Yeah.
cat's character is also very funny, very interesting. And then we have an assistant who's working for this main character. We will talk about more on these characters because I have framed questions also around them because I found them all so interesting. So yeah, overall, the mix of these characters and the genre that you have fused together, that we have contemporary India and then we have the folklore culture of India combining into this particular setting of urban city, and then we have another world which is right. I don't want to give away spoilers anymore again, but it is also very close to the urban setting that we are in. So while reading, also you feel like, हाँ ये possible है, ये ऐसा हो सकता है.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I liked. Coming back to that and
Yeah.
not giving away too many spoilers, let's give the audience something to find themselves intrigued by. So I'm going to read out a few passages from chapter number 3. This is the chapter where we come face to face for the first time with a supernatural being. And it comes in the third chapter itself. So you know what you're getting into. And you're excited to know कि ऐसे और creatures आने वाले हैं क्या आगे. So this is the where the main character comes to face with a supernatural being, and that is a pisach. And I'm going to read out that part. Something moved close to the ground in a dark corner. A pair of glowing eyes flashed for a second. It could have been a stray animal. It could have been my pori. It could have been my pori disguised as a stray animal. It could have been my imagination. The fear of what lies in wait in the dark is as potent as it was when men lived in caves and cowered at night in huddled masses, hoping for daylight to return. I'm just going to pause here and show everyone that, this is one of those chapters that I have highlighted. So you can see the highlight. Proof that, I enjoyed some bits a little more than the others. Yes, so continuing. I casually brought out my old brass tunuchi and lit the dried coconut husk in it with burning newspaper strips. When the coconut husks were burning, I added the dhuna powder. The sharp smoke rising from the tunuchi stung my eyes. I blinked rapidly as I next lit and stuck 9 long, narrow incense sticks into the dhoop holder above the handle. I began to walk around the crematorium chanting Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram as I blew the smoke into the shadows. A few of the mourners looked at me out of the corners of their eyes but ignored me as some kind of harmless eccentric, especially since I neither made eye contact nor attempted to approach them. Something moved in the shadows and scurried out. My pulse quickened. The name of Rama is anathema to the supernatural, as is any name or symbol of God wielded with true devotion. Merely uttering the name or holding up the symbol, though, is hardly powerful enough to cause them any real harm. For that, there are other weapons. However, the name of Ram, combined with the purifying smoke, would chase the Pishacha out of hiding. With grim satisfaction, I watched a fat black rat run up the stairs and into one of the vacant incinerators. I continued to chant and keep watch to make sure that it would not escape. In 20 more minutes, the mourning party departed with the final remains of their late lamented loved one. No one else had arrived in the meantime. Only a few men stood around the crematorium employees and the Purohits. Someone brought out a tea. One, I'm going to skip so we know where the Pisacha comes. Once the smashan was empty, knowing that it wouldn't stay for so far long, I got down to business. First, I placed a Nivaku or silencer on the floor. That's a device that what it does, you have to read the book. I'm going to skip further ahead. Once certain that the silencer was working, I sneaked into the incinerator's bowels, past the hulking furnace to the place where relatives collect the final remains. This was where the black rat had taken shelter. My entry was greeted by loud squeals, unlike any normal rat could utter. I pressed my advantage and stepped forward, swinging the Dunuchi into the corners. The rat leapt out and made a run for the canal behind the smashan, with me in hot pursuit. I almost lost the creature once in the darkness behind the crematorium. I grabbed my mobile and switched on the torch. At one time, I would have used a battery operated torch. Before that, a kerosene lantern. Many years before that, the flame from a wooden torch would have lit my way. Now a single device helps me to make calls, surveil people, and chase monsters in the dark. I love this. You used modern technology with the creatures of the dark. So I love it. The light from my mobile caught a flash of dark as the rat guised Pishacha scampered towards the canal. Once it escaped into the water, it would be beyond my reach. I put on a burst of speed while fishing in my backpack for a water balloon filled with Gangajal. Taking careful aim while chasing the rat in the light of my mobile torch, which is a great deal harder than it sounds, I lobbed the water balloon. Good fortune and years of practice combined to help me succeed. As the holy water drenched it, the Pisaja gave up its rodent form with an enraged screech that froze me to the spot. My hand shook and I gripped the mobile tighter, taking deep breaths to calm my racing pulse. I've done this before, I told myself. There's nothing to worry about. What's the worst that could happen? Death meant nothing. When it finally stopped growing, it was almost twice my size. Its black skin smelled putrid, and its red, glowing eyes were almost as scary as its large, toothy mouth. With another blood curdling scream, it lunged at me with its large, fleshy hands. So now the Pisacha has come into its true form, and we know there's going to be a fight between the protagonist and the Pisacha. What happens? Why is the Pisacha there? What happens after this fight? Go check out in the book. Wonderfully done, Rita. So first of all, thank you for that, and kudos to you. Now, based on my reading, I had a few questions for you. If you would be kind enough to answer them,
Of
I
course.
just need to pull up the questions for you. And I also say thank you to the people who have been listening and sending hearts. So thank you from both of us.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I said thank you to everybody who's been listening in.
Yes, they were also sending in hearts, so I'm assuming they are enjoying what you have written and what I read. Okay, my first question to you is you have combined the setting. So let's talk about the setting first. How did you go about constructing the hidden realm of the Patal beneath modern Kolkata? Was there any specific research or reading that was involved, or was it purely out of your imaginative mind?
Okay. So before I talk about how I created it, just a little bit about how I thought of creating it. So
Hmm.
I have been reading a bunch of urban fantasy, which is your typical Western urban fantasy. And
Correct.
Simon Green's Night Side series has been a big inspiration from for me. So there's this whole, not typically underground, but sort of similar to how, it's a secret hidden world coexisting with our world. Similarly, in any urban fantasy, there's often this unseen world that overlaps with our world. So I wanted to do something like that. So I started thinking, how can we do that? I didn't want to go with the typical Western kind of concept. But then I
Hmm.
started thinking, what is there in Indian mythology or Indian folklore that I can use? Because I wanted to really root this in our folklore and our mythology. So,
Hmm.
because I felt that there is so much scope there. I mean, these are stories we've told for thousands of years. Why would they not be relevant today, right? So, how to make them relevant today? And then I thought, okay, so we also have an underground region called Patal. So then
Hmm.
I started reading up about Patal, some online research, a couple of books that I read. And the more I read about it, the more interesting it felt. Because uh, if you remember from the mythological serials, Hanumanji going into Patal to look for
Yeah.
Ram and Lakshman, it's this dark place. And, but when I read about it, it's a far more complex place than just this
Hmm.
dark dungeon kind of place. So there are various levels of Patal. In fact, there's not just one Patal. So there is Atala, Sutala, Talatala, and so on and so forth. Many, many regions of Patal, and each one has its own unique traits. And also, that was my starting point for creating this. So the more I read about this, so I took some of that. I took some of the like older culture of Kolkata. So
Hmm.
because this is Patal Kali Kshetra, which is underneath Kolkata. So my assumption was that if there is a region which is overlapping, so there is a good chance that the culture of the overworld will kind of get amalgamated into the underworld also. So I took some of that. So that marketplace, and also some of the older marketplaces that you have from Kolkata, you get the same vibe there. All the different kinds of shops, and some strange things are there. And there's of course a pub, which is kind of like a typical thing that you have in all urban fantasies. But again, why is it? How can it be different? So I have a pub which is run by somebody who was a Anglo-Indian.
Hmm.
Right. Again, it's still very, very Indian. I am not importing anything really from outside except the concept. So I took a Western concept of urban fantasy, and I blended it with Indian mythology. And at
Hmm.
every time I was like, is there anything like this actually in Indian mythology that I can use? If there was, great. I tried to modernize it or try to kind of fit it into the world I had created. Uh, for instance, if you look at, there is this person in one of the shops who is a Naga. So
Hmm.
Nagas are in Indian mythology, and they fit very nicely with the kind of shop that person is running. So without giving spoilers, so I could fit that in there, right? But again, there are sometimes gaps of how to make it more relatable for audiences. Like, is it all dark all the time? Because that's not interesting, right? So how do you make it more relevant to today's audiences? Okay, what if they do have electricity?
Hmm.
How would they have electricity? So, how would an underground region have electricity? So the answer to that is given there. But if it's all like electricity run like in our world, again that's very boring, right? So how do you make that more interesting? So part of the time they're using electricity, part of the time they're not using it and going back to a more traditional form of lighting. So to create an ambience. So every step it's like. Is there anything I can use? If not, then I have to think of something from
Hmm.
myself, use my imagination to create. So there's been a lot of back and forth reading of mythology, taking stuff from other kind of typical fiction stories, like typical urban fiction stories, and reinterpreting it in an Indian context. So it's been a mixture of all of that. Like, jhalmudi we make in Kolkata, so it's a jhalmudi world.
Yeah, I actually like that also, that you have
Yeah,
used a lot of local reference
yeah,
terms from the Bengali literature,
yeah,
Bengali language. You have
yeah,
used a lot of that, those
yeah,
words and phrases, which I really
yeah,
liked. It makes it so much more authentic, and हाँ
yeah,
कि setting यहाँ पे है तो यही होना चाहिए. So
yeah.
which is really a really nice touch. Thank you for answering that, which brings me to my second question. That you have, we have already talked about it, but I want to understand it better and broader. So you have blended Indian mythology with modern story while doing this. There is fantasy, and then you have the urban setting of Kolkata. So was there a conscious effort from your side to maintain a balance between these two, for not losing accessibility kind of with contemporary readers?
Yeah. Okay, so when we read fantasy today or mythology based stories, almost all of it is very like set in the past, kind of. So whether it's your the Shiva trilogy or Vikramaditya Veer Gatha, it is in its own setting. And as amazing as those books are, I felt like there is something missing in the Indian literature of today, which is within the fantasy genre. The sub-genre of urban fantasy I felt was a little lacking. But, and I felt like, why can't we also have this? I mean, we
Hmm.
have just as rich a mythology, and why can't we interpret it in a way that the American and British writers are doing? So there was this very conscious and deliberate intention in my head that I want to do that. I want to take our mythology and put it in today's world. So
Hmm.
then it started from, okay, where can I put it? It had to be a city which was ancient enough to have like a really old history. So Kolkata may not necessarily be as ancient as, say, Varanasi or even Delhi, but it's still pretty old, and there's been a lot of very interesting and complex history. So I can bring in that history also if I need to. It's still a modern city with all kinds of modern gadgets and like malls and everything that we see in today's. Also, it's literally today's world, but it's a very peculiar city. If you've been there, it kind of tends to hold on to its past a lot, despite kind of moving forward as well. So it felt like a very ideal kind of place where to have this. And like you said, it had to be relatable to the audiences, right? So even when I am talking about something that is from our folklore or from our mythology, it cannot be in a way that people are like, अरे ये तो वो खिसा पिटा कहानी है पुराना जैसा दादी माँ सुनाती थी. Yes, it is दादी मा's story, but it is still your story today.
Hmm.
It is something you can understand. So,
So
using a
yeah,
mobile
take
phone.
that grandma tale and put it in today's world,
Correct.
basically.
So exactly. So you're using a mobile phone to chase after a monster, right? So it doesn't get more contemporary than that. And
Yes.
let's face it, right? If you imagine somebody actually doing something like that today, they're not going to chase with a normal torch. Right? They're not
Yeah.
going to use a kerosene lamp. This is what we do, right? And we switch on our mobiles. We talk to people on our mobiles, and we look at the road in the dark on our mobiles. Right? So
Yes.
दिस वाज अ वेरी कॉन्शियस एफर्ट कि अगर आज की तारीख में ये होना है तो क्या होगा. अगेन देयर इज दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन बिफोर ही गोस टू लुक फॉर द पिशाच अबाउट taking firewood, and he says today
Yes.
there are electric crematoriums, and there's this whole conversation. So it is a reality that things have changed today, and this is a guy who's over 150 years old. So you will find him talking about the past, but also he is constantly trying to stay in the present. So
Yes.
at every step I have to ask myself कि अच्छा आज के ज़माने में is this relevant? Is
Hmm.
what he is doing relevant? So he gets emails from clients instead of having your typical detective का office जहाँ पे एक lamp जल रहा है and there is cigarette smoke, and also cigarette again, he is very anti-tobacco, because let's face it, आज के ज़माने में we all know how harmful it is for health, right? And typically पुराने ज़माने के detectives used to smoke a lot, but I've deliberately made that choice कि he is living in the 21st century. He knows it's bad for health. So he is somebody who wants to do the right thing in life. So he is saying कि ये मुझे नहीं करना है. So, so every step what he is doing, what is happening in his household, I'm making a conscious and deliberate effort, uh, double checking ki, is this really something that a modern day person can understand and relate to, or will they feel कि अरे ये तो अजीब सा है, I really don't know. Even let's say you and I, we are born a few decades ago, right? So young people today, if I talk about a landline phone, a lot of them will probably not be able to even relate to that. Right.
Yes.
So we have to keep thinking of those things. Ki, what is it that will bring this guy and these stories to today's world? कि
Hmm.
आज हो रहा है, ठीक है. The creatures we are meeting today may not be from today necessarily, but they
Hmm.
are still living in today's world. So if they have to live in today's world, what kind of things will they be doing? Just if
Hmm.
we read in mythology, Danav and all, they were living in the forest, living in
Hmm.
palaces. आज के ज़माने में they can't do that. So if they have to live in today's world, what can they do? Well, there is a car mechanic who is a Mayadari. Right? So he has to make a living in today's world. So,
Yes.
so he fixes cars for a living. Right. But he has a relative who still does those mysterious, old-timey mythological stuff. So
Yes.
every step is, so it has to be a very, very conscious effort for me कि it's something कि राह चलते मुझे एक्चुअली लगना चाहिए कि यहाँ पे ये ऐसा दिख सकता है मुझे.
हाँ.
And so I have to keep going to Kolkata and this is set in 2019.
Hmm.
So anticipating kuch 2020 COVID is coming and all that. So when I write the stories which are set in 2020, I have to keep that in mind that 2020 में COVID चल रहा था and what the situation was. Without getting too much into the modern day politics, of course, which is the other thing, right? I don't want to get into that. I want it to be today's world, but not necessarily today's politics, because let's face it, this is not the right platform for too much of political, broad themes. Yes, some things like exploitation, some things like corruption, those will have to be there, but not rooted in the actual realities, because these are universal themes.
Hmm.
They have been there since ages and ages, right? So I will keep the universal themes and I will plant them in today's world, but without getting too bogged into whatever is wrong in today's city, today's Kolkata and all. So yeah, it's a very tightrope walk kind of situation that I have to do, and very consciously I have to make those choices when I'm writing the story.
Okay, another thing that came up in my mind while you were answering the question, a follow-up question that came up in my head is, did you choose Kolkata as your setting because you are familiar with the surrounding and the folklore? Does that
Not
make a
exactly,
difference?
because I am not from Kolkata, contrary to expectations. I have spent very less time there in my
Okay.
life. So I was born and raised in the Northeast. I did my graduation from Delhi. After graduation and before my MBA, I spent a couple of years in Kolkata. But the Kolkata, if you read my author bio, the fake author bio, it's actually not that fake, because the Kolkata that you find in my head and my imagination is the Kolkata I read about growing up in Bengali books. So it's
Hmm.
the Kolkata of Satyajit Ray and Hemendranath Roy and Sharadindu. So, all
Yeah.
these like authors who I loved growing up reading about the books. So that influence was always there. So the Kolkata you read about is more a descendant of their Kolkata than Kolkata me being familiar there, because today's Kolkata is very different from what you read in the book. It's not like one and one parallel, right? So if you are from Kolkata, you're familiar with how things there are, you'll find some differences in the soul
Hmm.
of the Kolkata that I write about, and that's there in the reality. So, like I said, to some extent, the familiarity was more with the history and the folklore rather than the city itself.
Yeah, I
And
meant it in a broader context that you are
yeah,
aware of the Bengali literature and folklore.
yes,
That is why
yes.
the setting and
Yeah.
the background.
Correct. So,
Yes.
exactly. So more than the city, it was the familiarity with the folklore and the stories that are told. So you find a lot of creatures and a lot of interpretations of those creatures which are typically Bengali. So the food that they eat and the kind of conversations that they have and the relationship that they have. So that is something I grew up with. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was definitely an influence in that choice of city. There's one more very important influence, which was something that actually gave me the idea of a zamindar who is not restricted to a single original life. So
Hmm.
there is a case called the case of the Bhawal Sannyasi. So do look it up when you have the time. It's a real case, okay? It's real court
Yeah.
case that happened. This was during British India, and a zamindar who was supposedly murdered by his relatives came back to life in the Shamshan. and
Oh,
he became a sannyasi, but later he came back to reclaim his heritage and all of that. So that idea was also there in the back of my mind. I think that's very rooted in Bengal, and that was the original idea. So that also played into having this guy being from Bengal. So
oh, no. So a lot of Bengali folklore and literature
yeah,
in the influence
yeah,
here. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And definitely, that's what I meant. That does that make a difference
Mm.
as an author, as a creator? That what you have learned, grown up hearing or being
Yeah.
familiar with, that makes a lot of difference when you are
That is.
writing such a story. It
Yeah.
makes, yeah, you, since you're familiar with it, I feel that it makes a difference in making the story more authentic.
I agree. I agree. It's about writing what you know, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean it's a very limited thing you write, but it's something. It's like I don't know every folklore or every myth, but it's something I can kind of it's in my soul, right? And similarly, when you are grown up or you belong to a particular community, uh, you have an attachment with that community that is inside you. Right? You
Yeah,
can't let go. Even so, like I was what is called a Probashi Bengali. So like I grew up outside of Bengal, but
hmm,
there's a bit of Bengal inside of me, right? I'm sure that is the case with everyone in India, right? Which is why we keep going back to the stories told by our grandparents or told by authors in regional languages. Right. So we keep going back to those because it's something very, I think it makes Indians as a community richer.
yes.
That connection with our past and with our cultures.
Yes, definitely. And yes, that sense of familiarity, sense of comfort that you have with your own language, your own people, even though you might not have grown up in that particular region, that makes a huge difference to Indians at least. Because
Yeah.
as we keep saying again and again, we have such a diverse and rich culture.
And I've been
Oh,
living in Pune, but I wouldn't dare to use Pune for a story like this because uh, no matter how much I get to know Pune as a city or the people of Pune or the culture of Pune, it would still feel a bit like cultural appropriation if I was doing that, you know.
hmm,
So
right.
to me, that is something very important. And maybe not for everybody, but if you read Salil Desai's stories, they are based in Pune and they feel so authentic. So I want the same kind of authenticity.
Yes. Lovely. Thank you so much for answering those
Yeah,
questions so well,
yeah,
Rita. Now I leave the floor open to you. You have also
sure.
read my book. Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, so your book and mine are so different in so many ways, but
Yeah.
to be honest, I'm not very used to reading poetry these days. But I was very impressed with the kind of
Thank you.
stuff you have written because at the same time it's written so simply and still there is so much depth and there is so much thought-provoking content in those stories. So I'll
I'm
start
just
by
going to
reading one of
show
the poems.
you
Yeah.
to everyone
I
the cover
have
here.
it on my Kindle. Wait, I'll show you. It's on my laptop, so I'll have to show from here. So I have Kindle app on my laptop. See, there it
Lovely.
is.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm just
Yeah.
going to remind everyone that the book
Yes.
is also available in paperback and hardcover now. So go
Yes.
check it out on Amazon. Previously, it was only in Kindle version, but we have the paperback now. So do check it out.
Yeah. So I'll read one of the notes, which is called "Dear Books." That poem. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So because that's something you and I definitely have in common. So it's something very relatable for me, despite reading and writing different kind of books. Right. So dear first and forever love. I was 8 years old when I first met you. I don't remember the exact day and date, but I remember what you wore. The green pants, exactly the shade that I like. You know, the grassy green, almost giving a whiff of a freshly mowed and manicured field, caught my attention right away. You had paired it with a blue top, which once again was exactly the variant I loved. Sky blue. The kind that's above us on an idyllic sunny day, with the clouds floating by thanks to a gentle breeze. It showed the golden hour, the time of the day I looked forward to most for many reasons. All of which you learned in due course because we spent many a days spending those minutes together, hand in hand, sometimes accompanied by music, someone you've always considered the third wheel in our relationship. I love this idea. That music is the third wheel in that relationship. But like, books and music kind of really go hand in hand, right? So who's the third wheel? That's the real question. Is it us, the readers? Yeah. But I hope after so many years, I've been able to convince you of your permanent place as my number one. Forgive me, I digress. But that's what talking about you does to me. Anyway, coming back to that day, of course, the combination of your clothes was a 10 by 10 for me right away. But the clincher for me was the horse motif on your top. Yeah, actually, I did, thought about one of the earliest books I had taken from a library and read. So it was such an exciting thing for me going to the library, picking out my books, and it was about a horse. So this one really resonated with me.
Wow, lovely.
Yeah. Uh, it showed the beautiful creature up on its hind legs with its two others in the air. I wish I could say it was love at first sight. But you and I both know my views on that and how slow burn romances have always been my thing. Nonetheless, back then, everything about you intrigued my formative mind. I wanted to approach you, wishing to speak to you, but my introverted self wouldn't allow me. A friend who was with me at the time understood my trepidation. To this day, I can't thank them enough for introducing you to me and taking care of all and any inhibitions I might have had in that moment. Just out of curiosity, where did you see this? Like school library or somewhere? I mean, because this whole situation seems very intriguing.
So I was at a library, a personal library, at my teacher's house, and I saw the book there. And we were just checking out their collection, and I saw this book cover, and I was just thinking maybe I should read it or not read it because I had not read much till that age. And a friend was also there with me at the same teachers, library, and they were like, "अच्छा लग रहा है तो ले लेना, इतना क्या सोच रही है?" You can always ask the teacher because she had allowed us to go into the library with the intention that if you like a book, please borrow it. So yeah, that was the. But I was an introverted child, and I had never read a book before, so I was a little. There was inhibition, as I can you can make out in the letter.
Yeah, yeah, very true, very much so. It comes across very beautifully. Yeah. Okay. From the moment we spoke, it was always you who took the driver's seat, quite literally. So this I need a little clarification on driver's seat, as in what do you mean quite literally? There's got to be a story there, right?
You are familiar with India's traffic, yeah, right?
Yeah, yeah,
What do we do stuck in that traffic? Bookworms
yeah,
like us. We always have the current reads as our,
uh,
fallback.
yeah.
बैठे बैठे क्या
Okay,
करे
okay.
करना है कुछ काम. So this is our काम.
I can actually picture that you're sitting in the traffic and कुछ हिल ही नहीं रहा है and you're reading your book.
What to do?
So true. Yeah. The conversations have since been controlled by you, and I, for one, have no complaints about that. Hold on. Where? Ah, feminism be damned, at least this one, right? The first rendezvous lasted long, and I didn't realize when the hours slipped by. Parting with you, even after just the first encounter, left me in tears. Me, who even at that age prided myself in being practical and in control of my emotions. You'd sure put me in my place and knew just the right buttons to push me. As I said goodbye, I promised myself I'd have you around more. And around you've been since that day. I've seen you in many avatars, donning many outfits after that horse motif one that started off our journey. Yes, admittedly, my tastes and travels have deepened, mostly because of you, but even so, I have to say, I've rarely seen or met someone who can carry off all kinds of shades and colors too well. Your sizes have changed over the years, too, varying from XS to XXL. Mine is somewhere around L-ish, I suppose.
Yes.
When I first met you, you were somewhere between small and medium. As I look at you now with my hands around you, I feel you somewhere between medium and large. But true to your unique nature and my moods, I've liked you in almost all sizes. You spent many days together, sometimes hours on end. But my favorite moments with you are after dark. The nights spent with you always leave me satisfied, sometimes keeping up till the break of dawn. Okay, it's a rather longish one, so I think I'll stop here and let readers discover the rest. And I love how it's written. Like so many of your poems are written like they're actually being told to some person, like some really someone who's very close to you, someone you're very much in love with, so romantic. So yeah,
Dear books,
yeah.
this is the book. This is the poem that Rita just read out, and it is
Uh-huh.
from this book. Go check it out.
Yeah, it's very like okay. We are all adults here, so let me say it's very sexy. So yeah, yeah, I love how you've written all of these poems about which are things and which are not people, but the way you've talked to them, like they're actually there and they're conscious beings who are listening and maybe even responding in some way. It's really very intriguing and very touching, somewhere. Like, these are things we see every day around us and we take for granted. But
Yes.
without these things, our lives would be so difficult sometimes. Lives would be so empty sometimes. So yeah, I mean, the whole idea of being grateful to things and people, of course. You talk about your family and your friends, and yeah, I think that we should all take a lesson from this. And even though we Indians are typically raised to not be very expressive of our feelings, but I think yeah, we should talk to people and tell them how we feel about them. So I don't know whether this is your attempt to do that or you do it regardless of that, but I think we should all do that. If we can't say it ourselves, maybe take a poem from your book and send it to our loved ones. So at least then know how
Yes.
we feel about them. Right? It's really, really interesting and heartfelt and so much. They're funny and in some places like you're like talking about books as a lover, but also at the same time such depth of feeling is this. I really loved reading your
Thank
poems.
you. Thank you so much. I'm just going to address the one remark that has come up from one of the audience. Sakshi here is saying that's Manali's USP. Keeps it simple but deep thought. Thank you so much, Sakshi.
Yeah, that definitely is what I felt. So, yeah, okay. So, I want to ask you a couple of questions about this book that you've written. So, this is, of course, there are a lot of different things you've talked about, library, vegetables, curtains, all kinds of unexpected things, and all types of people who are in your life. Uh, but since the book was published, have you been thinking about more such things and people and places, maybe, I don't know, that you feel grateful for and you've thought of writing such notes to them? If yes, then what are those things or people that you've thought of?
Consciously, these are the people that I have always been grateful for. But after I put out the collection, there was one group of people that I regret missing out on addressing in the book, which is that my siblings and cousins who have always been very important for me. And after I put out the book, I realized that, I have not written about them at all. I have an elder sibling. I have so many cousins that I love, and, we have spent so many good moments together as growing, as children. I have not addressed them at all. So that's one thing that, came to me after the book was out and after I put this in a written format, all of the things that I'm grateful for. So I forgot that one particular important part of my life. And other things also I realized, yes, that there are many things that I have not addressed in the book, but I'm really grateful for. For instance, there's my stove. I'm really grateful. I've not been much of a cook my entire
Yeah,
life.
you
Yeah, but
find that in the book, yes.
yes, and over the past few years, I've become, I don't want to say an ardent cook, but from a novice, I've at least become somebody who can cook 3 meals a day. So I'm grateful to the staff for that because uske bina to kaise ho pati ye journey possible. And
Yeah,
then
very
over
beautiful. Yeah.
television, there's the OTT, the content that I consume on a regular basis because I'm a cinephile. So I watch TV every day and I'm not written to the television or the OTT for providing me the entertainment that I'm always looking for. Many things there are that I have missed out, but writing the book and being grateful for these everyday things and people, it has made me more conscious of you know, saying thank you, maybe in my mind, in my conscious, that, I am grateful that I have this particular person or this particular facility in my life which makes my life easier.
Great. So just a follow-up question. Is there a volume 2 in the works?
No, not as of now, because I think the concept is now done with. If I
Okay.
put in more things, I don't think there will be a novelty in that. And I do try to bring something novel in my books. Every time that I put out a book, I try to do something that I've not done before, or it's done very few times by other authors also previously.
Okay. Okay. So, how long did it take you to, compile all of these notes and names? How long did it take you to bring this book together? And how did you decide which ones would go in the
Okay.
book?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this question in two, three parts. I think the first part begins from my journey as a writer, and poetry and letter writing is something that I've done since I was a teenager. So I think subconsciously that idea must have been there somewhere in my mind, but it inculcated and took form of this book a couple of decades later. And that, I think the seed was sown when Nilshri is here. I'm just going to give her a quick shout out here. She runs an e-magazine called Authoropod, and they came up with a writing challenge back in 2023, November 2023. They had a challenge which was this only letter writing challenge. It was the concept was around letter writing, and we were supposed to write letters for each day of the month for 30 days, and they had given us various prompts to write those letters. So for each day they had given us a different prompt, like write a letter to your father, write a letter to your mother, write a letter to a stranger, write a letter to somebody you admire, write a letter to somebody you are envious of. So those different kind of 30 prompts they had given. So as part of that challenge, I wrote 30 letters, and most of those letters are part of this collection. By the end of that challenge, I had 30 letters written, and the idea was already, brewing in my head that maybe I can convert this into a book. But I also had this particular thought that 30 are not enough to be converted into a book. It would not be bulky enough or enjoyable enough, because by the time people are up to the 15th poem and then they come to the 30th poem, they'll be like, this is over too soon. So I wanted to add more poems, more depth. And also another thing that came up in my head was I had only addressed people in those letters that were given as prompts to us by Authorobot. The letters were only addressed to people. I wanted to add more dynamic to it. So that challenge happened in November 2023. I continued the same format of letter writing in another challenge, which came up in April 2024, which was the A to Z challenge by Blog Chatter. It's a blogging community, and they have a challenge every April, A to Z challenge, where we are supposed to use each letter of the English alphabet to write for 26 days of that month. And I continued that particular challenge, and I thought of making it more diverse by addressing things in that particular challenge and not people. That's how you see different things like curtains, COVID-19 vaccine, keyboard, Ziploc. So all those weird things that you might not generally think of being grateful for. And I had to come up with something that was relating to that particular letter of the English alphabet. That's why you see a diverse range of things that are addressed, right from curtains to keyboard and Ziploc and journals and a lot of other things. So I combined these two challenges, put together about 50, 40, 45 poems were already there. I still felt that they were falling short for converting into a collection of book, a collection which can be converted into a book. So I went back to my repository because as I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this kind of letter writing for a while now. And some of them I had also put out on my blog. So I went back to that repository. I looked at any other letters which were addressed, which could form a part of this collection. Because though there were many letters, I also wanted to, keep the flow of the gratitude going. There were other letters which might not have been, all about gratitude. So I went back to the repository, looked at those letters, made them also a part of this collection that I was compiling. And before I made the final decision, I reached out to a few trusted friends asking them whether people would be interested in reading such a book, or is it too personal? Because nobody would want to read about a personal diary. I wanted to make it universal also. Why would people be interested in what is going on in my life or read letters that I had addressed to something and people that they would not be able to understand or relate to? So I asked them honestly whether this is good enough to be put into a book. All of them got back and said, yes, it's a very good collection, but some of the letters feel very personal. Maybe we can remove those. So then consciously, I went back to the letters and looked at it, it with a new lens, new perspective, thinking about whether they are too personal, then we'll remove them. So I removed a few of the letters from the collection, and also I edited the letters that had personal elements in them, and I made tried to make them more universal. So I removed lines where I was discussing a particular instance or addressing something particular that someone did to me, and if those were a part of the letters, I removed those lines. So that's how the whole process came about, and then the book came to 55 poems. I think if we consider it subconsciously, I would say it took decades, but that's not the conscious effort that has gone inside. The conscious effort that was there, I think it was from November 2023 to April 2024. That was the conscious part. So I think about 6, 7 months. I am 6 months. Yeah.
That's really prolific still. I mean, considering it's just about 6, 7 months to come up with a book like this, really amazing.
Thank you. And thank you for asking me that question because it reflects on my journey also, and I was able to recall the journey of the book, how it came about. So thank you for asking me that question. Okay.
That's one of the things that struck me because it's such an unusual kind of book. So I really one of the first things I wondered about the book was that. So I thought, okay, now I'm getting a chance to ask her. I'm going to do that.
Yes, and Arthropod has been a great influence in the journey of this book. So once again, a short shout out to Arthropod team and Nilshri.
Great.
Okay. That brings us to the end of the long form questions that we had for each other, Rita. Now we move on to my favorite bit, which is the rapid fire round. Are you ready?
Yeah, I hope so.
So how we'll do this, Rita, is we'll do back and forth. One question I ask, one question you ask. Okay? So I'm pulling up my questions. Yes, my first question to you is, who would win in a sass off, Manik or his aunt? Because both of them are so sassy.
Okay, this is aunt, hands down, any day of the week and twice on a Sunday. I love writing that character, she's so smart. So, any day of the week, she's the one who wins.
I thought so as much too because the Manik doesn't have the comebacks when she comes up with some of the things. Yeah. Yeah.
She's a lot smarter than him, for sure.
Oh yes, yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
my first question is, from all the notes you have written in your book, the 55 odd notes, which one is your favorite one?
Oh dear God, that's a difficult one. But I think the ones that I have addressed to books, there's another one. There's addressed to the library. So books, library, the ones which are focused on bibliotherapy. Those are my favorite.
I love that word, bibliotherapy. That's a very interesting word. I'm going to use that going forward.
Yes, I also came upon it very recently because there was another fictional story that I wrote where I used reading and books as for a character's healing journey. They were going through a mental stress, mental disorder, trauma, and I used books as a means of their healing. And that's when I came across this term while I was writing the story. Is there something like, yeah, bibliotherapy exists?
No, no, that's a great term. Definitely going to keep that in my pocket.
Okay, my next question to you is: if you could spend a day in Ageless Feud, what role would you play? Would it be an investigator? Would it be a villain? Would it be a sidekick? Or would it be the cat? And why?
Okay, so I have slightly complicated answer to that. So not the investigator for sure. That's the most thankless job in the world, probably. Okay, the cat. Yeah, I would love to be a cat any given day of the week, given that I'm already a cat mom and I have 8, 9 cat kids of my own. So yeah, yeah. So a villain, yes. Any day I would love to write myself into the book as a villain, and you've actually given me that idea. But I'll have to see where I fit in that whole, series of mythological villains and who are really powerful. And so now coming to the assistant, probably be the assistant most of all. uh,
Hmm.
to an extent, because that character, a lot of it is based on me as a person. So I do
Oh,
not look like that today, but there was a time when I even looked like that. Right? Not wearing a sari at all, but I had long hair and used to tie in a bun, and used to be. There's a typical description of her, like a plain, but
yes.
she's intelligent and she's really clever about things. So a lot of her character is based on me.
Hmm.
So yeah, probably if I have to fit in, the most seamlessly I'd fit in is as Mimi, who is the assistant.
Ah, lovely.
Yeah.
Now that you are saying it, yes, I do think that. I am thinking of how she was as a character, recalling what I've read of her in the
A
book.
lot
And
of
yes,
us who read and write are like that, women who are like that, women, intelligent women who are not too much focused on being pretty, or more focused on developing our minds, and
yes,
yeah, I think it's maybe based on me, but I meet so many of us who are the
yeah,
same kind of people every day in this community.
yes, lovely. Good pick. Your turn.
Okay. So, which of the notes that you have written was the hardest to write for you?
Oh dear Lord. Another tough question. But I think the toughest to write there are two. It's a tie
Hmm.
between two. One of them is actually it turned out to be a humorous experience while writing it, but while writing it, I was it was therapeutic. So one is the where the social media handles my social media handles are talking to each other and they are
Hmm.
discussing me. So yeah, that is also actually one of the letters which I was mentioning earlier, where I had to give it a universal touch. In the actual letter, the original letter, they were actually talking about me and the experiences that I went through. Those have been edited out in the version that has been put into the book. So yeah, that was a I had a couple of encounters with social media that were not very good. They were causing me, mental stress also. So writing that letter was therapeutic for me, also challenging. But after that, I was like, yes, I feel better now. My feelings are all vented out. So
Must
that
have
was
been
one.
very difficult because social media can be a very brutal place for anybody, to be honest. And despite knowing that it's not a real world as such, it still affects you very deeply. Especially we have to be on social media all the time. So yeah, I can imagine this would be hard for you. What's the other one?
The second one was Dear Backstabber because I wrote it with reference to somebody who I was very close to for more than 2 decades, and they betrayed me, and I was very heartbroken. So I wrote that particular poem keeping them in mind, and I wanted to put my feelings out there. Not address them directly, but they are there. In spirit, they are there in the poem, and I put out all feelings I of hurt, of anger, of everything. And yeah, that was also one of the most difficult ones because while I was writing it, I was channeling all the emotions I felt towards them, all the betrayal that they had put me through. So these two poems.
Okay, that's basically the really difficult emotions. Expunging them onto paper was a biggest challenge for, I'm sure. It's always difficult to confront one's deepest, darkest emotions, and I think it helps when you and people like you and me, we can put it down on paper to deal with those things.
Yes,
Great, your
definitely.
turn now.
My next question to you is one magical artifact from the book that you would steal for yourself, and why would you steal it, and what would you do with it?
Okay, so I actually, okay, tell me how to think of it. So probably the one that you mentioned earlier
Yeah,
also,
I
when
was
we
also
came
thinking
to
about
that,
the silencer.
the
Yes.
one was the silencer. I will tell you why I would like to have that in real life, and it's a slightly serious thing. As I said, I work with, I work in animal welfare, so I feed a lot of community animals.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest problems we face is people coming up and starting to shout for no reason, and they'll say all kinds of awful things, and sometimes almost get into fights. So there have been situations where I've had to call the cops also, because there have been difficult situations. Like gundas and all have come up and tried to protect me. So I literally had to call the cops. So, there are situations when it becomes very difficult. See, we need to cohabit it in the world with all species, right? And dogs have been with us for so long, and now we can't say that. no dog in the world, just humans will be there. And how are they going to survive? They've lost, we took them from the wild and domesticated them. We don't do our share of looking after them. How are they going to survive?
Yes.
A world cannot exist where there are only humans. The world will die if there are only humans. So, I would love to use a Rivaku when I'm doing my nightly feeding so that all these idiotic people won't come and bother me and the
Yeah.
dogs. So, they'll be completely like unaware of what is going on. I can feed my dogs in peace. The dogs are happy. I am happy. To
Yeah.
be honest, I really wish sometimes that could be done.
Yes. Lovely. I love that answer. Thank you. Your turn.
Okay. So my next question is, so I have seen like you read a lot of different types of books. You also said that you're every week you're reading a new book and you're having an author collab. But you must have some genres that you really prefer reading over others. So which are those genres that you love to read and you get your hands or don't want to let go kind of?
The two genres are tie at the top spot for this. One is rom com and one is thrillers. You give me these and I will be like. So in fact, I have tried many times where when I read a good rom com or thrillers that if I can have them on the author collab, it will be like ek tir se do nishan. And that has
Yes.
actually happened. Some of the books that I ended up enjoying while reading, not being a part of the author collab, I reached out to the author and they came on the show, and that was like, wow, that can also happen. Hey, hi, we have a guest.
Yes. Special guest, Ginger Cat.
Yes. So yeah,
Okay,
those are the
great.
two genres.
Great. So, okay. So while I do read thrillers myself, not a fan of rom-com as such, but okay, but I
Okay.
do enjoy them occasionally once in a while. Definitely. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, my next question to you is now I have a couple of questions where I have combined our two books. And this is the first question. The first one is which line from Embraces in Ink would fit perfectly as an opening for a fantasy or supernatural novel like this one and why?
Okay. So that's a bit challenging to be honest because the way these poems are written, they're all in second person and very positive and upbeat. So fantasy novels are generally either in second person or that we usually start with the problematic scenarios.
Yes.
So yeah, so you have the poem about the COVID-19 vaccine, right? And
Yes.
yeah, there's a line in there which is wait, let me just check that
What
line.
they want.
Yes, so the line is we've met twice now. I'm sure you don't remember me. That's literally probably the only line I could think of that could
Wow.
match my fantasy book or one of my books. That can go in any direction from there.
Yes, lovely. I love that. And also in that particular letter, I have addressed fantasy by using a character directly from a fantasy novel series,
Yeah,
which is Lord Voldemort. So yeah,
yeah,
that would be perfect.
yeah.
Okay, your turn.
Okay, so again, so this is an interesting question. So I have been listening to a lot of audiobooks these days because while doing household chores, it's very easy to just put it on and keep on doing that. So if your like poems, this the notes they have to be recorded in audiobook form, and have they already been recorded as an audiobook? No. Okay. So if they have to be recorded as an audiobook, who would you like to be the narrator of that audiobook?
Oh, that is a very interesting question. Uh, I do have a few actors and singers whose voice I really, the baritone in that voice I really admire. So if I had to choose an actor, I would say Nasiruddin Shah or Amitabh Bachchan because I love their voice. They have a very nice baritone voice. If I had to choose a singer uh, or a lyricist, maybe I would say Gulzar Sahab because wow, what a voice!
Very true.
Uh, and if I had to choose a woman, that's a little difficult one, but I think uh, heavy voice. Usha Uttup has a really heavy, nice
Yeah,
voice. So
that's a very interesting one.
yeah,
That's true. That's
she would
very
do.
true.
Yeah, she would do justice of the reading.
Yeah, yeah, I can actually imagine these people reading these notes and the kind of timbre of their voice and the way they will be able to bring out the emotions, like getting goosebumps.
Yeah, we are manifesting, sending it out to the universe now.
Yes, definitely, definitely. It would be really amazing if that happens. Huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, my last
Okay.
question to
Yes.
you.
Ah,
Pick one poem or letter for each character from Ageless Feud and tell us why you choose it. One, we have Manik. Second, we have the assistant. Third, we have the cat. Fourth, we have the mother. And fifth, we have the aunt.
okay. So with the mother, of course, that's the easiest. You have a poem about mother's dear mother, which talks about a relationship with, and I think in so many ways, mother's love and one's relationship is such a universal feeling. With the way mothers protect us in so many ways, and the way we grow up with them, and so yeah, definitely, dear mother would be the poem for his mother. Uh, Manik himself, probably the poem that is dear fictional character, because it talks about the arc and the journey of a character within the book. But for me as a writer, when I'm writing this series, it's a series of several books, and that's exactly what I'm trying to capture here. I'm trying to capture this man's journey from being a certain kind of person whom you may not necessarily like so much, and
Hmm.
trying to be a different kind of person. So for me, it's the arc that I really felt would really suit him. So that's the poem I would pick for him. Um, for the cat, keep coming back to the cat. I was like, okay, what would fit for a cat? There's nothing about cats in the book, but then I thought, okay, there is something, which is that the poem about friends. With that whole section about friends, there's one there which is called "Dear Always Around When Needed Friends."
Yes.
So yeah, so if you read the book, you'll know why I'm picking that, and yeah. So you've got to
Also
read the
because
poem
I
and the book. Yeah. And because I know what happens in the subsequent books as well, I felt that really fit very nicely. So it's not just this book, it's the all the books
have
where
all
how the
in the
thread fits
series.
into the story. So this is perfect for the cat. As for the aunt, okay, again, it's really difficult to think about it because the dynamic that Malik has with his aunt is very complex.
Yes.
See, it's not exactly a love-hate relationship, but it's still a very complex one, right? With him always criticizing him, and but somehow deep down she does want him to be a better man. So I thought, and the one I think will fit is the one that is Dear Life Changer, because
Hmm.
that does talk about somebody who is pushing you to be a better
Yes.
person, and you may not always like what they're doing, but deep down that it's going to make you a better person somewhere. So yeah, as for the assistant, the one I feel will fit the best is Dear Universe, and I'm not going to tell you why, because that's going to be a spoiler, so you've got to read the rest of the series to figure that out.
We have another author here who has joined in the audience, and she's saying on Tanvi is saying, on that note, I have a cat too. I guess you should write a poem, a loner, which would suit her best.
The cat, right? But my cats aren't loners. My cats are very social. I don't know. Maybe because you have one cat rather than multiple ones, like you get more cats. Moral
Uh-huh.
of the story, get more cats.
Get more cats. Yes, your cats also need company.
Yeah, yeah. My house is a zoo most of the time.
Lovely. Okay,
Yeah,
I think
great.
that's that brings us to your last
Yeah,
question in this
yeah.
segment.
So my last question for you is, so you not just read a lot of different genres, that you said you love reading rom-coms and thrillers the most. You write all very different types of books also. Someone in the audience also commented that every book you write, you yourself said that, right? You don't want to repeat. So when it comes to writing, which are your favorite genres to write?
Uh, if we are talking about a very wide genre, I think it would be poetry because I've been putting out a poetry book every year since 2020, and that's one genre that I really like exploring as a writer also. And you can see it because I have done something very different in this book. In the previous book also, I have tried to do something different. In one particular book, I have focused on various emotions. In one particular book, I have focused on elements of the night. So I try to do something different in the wider genre of poetry also, and I enjoy doing that. So yes.
I guess poetry as a carrier for different kinds of thoughts and ideas is a it is a very rich carrier that way. So I guess you can do a lot more with poetry.
Yes. Yes. So yeah.
Great, great.
Okay,
Yeah.
that brings us to the end of this segment, and we come to the last segment of the episode, which is the gratitude bingo. Since in this season I have written a book which is focusing on gratitude, I have introduced a new segment where the gratitude bingo, where I ask the guest questions related to gratitude. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and you just need to answer in yes or no. Okay? My first question to you is, did a random act of kindness? You have to just say yes or no. Have you done a random act of kindness?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. I'm just going to read out a comment that has come up from Marietta. I finally came to know why a catwalk is called so when I happened to notice a friend's catwalk delicately placing one leg before the other like models do. So this is becoming a cat lover's paradise, this whole episode. Okay, my next question in the bingo is paid gratitude to an object
So it's little clarification. So you mean like in my mind or like out loud?
in your mind, not physically written. If you have thought about it, also counts.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, lovely. Next one, wrote a gratitude letter.
No, haven't done that.
Okay. Next one. Said sorry to someone in the last 24 hours.
Yes.
Okay. Next one. Said thank you to someone in the last 24 hours.
Yes.
Lovely.
Funnily enough, to the same individual.
Oh, okay. This is interesting.
Yeah.
I'll ask you about it in detail after the episode.
Yes.
I have to know. Okay. Next one. Hugged someone in the last 24 hours.
Yes.
I I don't want to ask, but I'm very intrigued. Is it the same person again?
Yeah. Actually, lot of persons. I hugged all my babies in the last 24 hours multiple times.
Okay, lovely. Next one. Said something nice or paid a compliment to someone in the last 24 hours.
24 hours.
This,
Yeah.
this also counts. You have appreciated me a lot.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Definitely yes.
Okay, next one. Forgive someone who hurt you in life, not just 24 hours. Forgive someone who hurt you.
Yes.
Okay, next one. Help someone without any motive or expectations.
Yes.
Lovely. Next one. Give someone a shout out in the last 24 hours.
No. Not in the last 24 hours. No.
Okay, next one. Listen to someone with empathy and without judgment in life.
Yes.
Okay, next one. Spend quiet time alone outside
In lifetime, right?
in
Not
life.
24 hours. Yeah.
In life.
Yes.
Okay, next one. Did not complain a whole day.
Okay. To be very honest, probably no.
You are being honest because I
Yeah.
have had more than 90% guests saying no. Uh,
Okay.
and the ones, those who have said yes, I have a very big doubt in my mind that they are lying because this is not possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are in the majority and you are also
Yeah.
being truthful. So you are fine. Next one. Wrote three things you like about yourself. Not necessarily wrote, but also thought also counts.
Yes.
Okay, lovely.
I
Wrote three
have to
things.
do that every time I come up for something like this where I'm really stressed and I would tell myself I'm actually good.
Yeah, that becomes an exercise again. But yes,
Yes.
you have done it. So it counts. Next one. Wrote three things you like about your parents.
Uh, in my lifetime, right? Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Wrote three things you like about someone you envy.
No, I haven't done that.
इतना बड़ा दिल नहीं है मेरा. I'm not that level of zen.
No, Brahma haven't actually thought of doing that, to be honest. But yeah, that's an interesting exercise in self reflection.
Yes. Okay, next one. Wrote three things you like about a friend or a colleague.
Yes,
Okay, next one. Helped, mentored, or shared knowledge with someone.
yes.
Great. Next one. Watched the sunset in the past month.
Not the past month, but probably like I have to say no because not in the past month because I don't really get to see a sunset from my house, and I'm really very much of a homebody kind of person. But last quarter of the year, yes, definitely. So that I have done. So I can extend that answer.
Okay, next one. Observed or appreciated nature and its elements.
Yes.
Lovely. Next one. Sat in the sunlight in the past week.
No.
Okay. Next one. Made someone laugh or smile in the past 24 hours.
Yes.
This counts, so yes. We have been laughing quite a bit.
Yes.
Next one. Turned or looked at a negative situation in a positive manner.
Um, in my whole life or 24 hours?
No, no, life.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yes, definitely, yes.
Okay, next one. Did something this month that you have been wanting to do for a long time.
Yes.
Okay, lovely. And the last one. Took ownership or responsibility for your mistake.
Yes.
Lovely, you've done very well. There were, I think, only a few no's, and one doesn't count because वो majority में पड़ता है. We are not God.
Most of my complaints, to be honest, are usually with my kids only. Why are you doing this? That's a very common refrain in my house. Like 3 a.m., somebody will be jumping from somewhere and I'll be like, why are you jumping at 3 a.m. in the morning? Like, there are more days
Okay,
when I don't have to complain about stuff like that.
lovely. So with that, we come to the planned stuff that we had for the episode. I have had a lot of fun, and I asked this question especially to those guests who made me laugh and smile a lot. So I'm going to ask you, when are you coming up with the next book so I can invite you again?
Okay, for this series, I have already started writing the second one. Probably sometime next year, I'm looking at summer next year. So, because it's going to take a bit of time to go through the whole process of it. I am working on something else, which is a rehash of something I had done earlier, and I
Yeah.
unpublished that and doing the rework. That probably by the end of this year, hopefully, fingers crossed. And it's a very different genre again. So writing under another pseudonym called W.B. Paul. So it's a very Lord of the Rings kind of story.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
but again rooted in Indian mythology, but we have to be really perceptive to see that. So yeah, so earliest probably again is December that I'm coming up with
Oh, wow.
something.
Looking forward to that. Looking forward to the second book of this series also.
Sure, sure.
All the best for both. I am
Thank
looking
you,
forward
thank
to
you.
hosting you also again. So please keep in mind that my message will come anytime when you put out the
Yeah,
book,
yeah, absolutely.
book
And next
release.
time we can talk about one of your other books. Definitely, the one about night time is really intriguing for me because I am one of those people who loves the night time. So I'm really looking forward to reading that book.
Oh, wow. That makes me very happy. And definitely, I look forward to hosting you again and all the best for all your work.
Thanks,
Whatever,
thanks so
whatever
much
is
for
in
having
progress.
me here, Manali. Yeah, it's been great. It's been a blast, and thank you so much, everybody who joined in.
Yes, thank you to everyone who joined us also. This episode will be available on my Instagram feed and my YouTube channel. So you can always go back and look at the bits that you have missed, or if you want to go over the conversation, this fun conversation again.
Yes, I need to see what I say.
Definitely. Okay, have a
Sure.
great
Thank you
weekend.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.